Recording in progress.
Okay, can you hear now?
Yes.
Is there Okay, great. Ed, our tech is there. If you if for some reason these mics cut out, just let us know, and we will. We have a few more here which we can keep plugging in and trying.
Not charged when they weren't charged. You could charge.
I don't know.
They was looking, your light wasn't on, so that's why they couldn't hear you. So you guys can
Okay.
hear both of us now?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, good deal. Yeah, so what I was saying before is we're going to start the meeting here in just about another minute. We have this new technology. We have a couple people who are coming in the room, and we'll go ahead and start very soon. We have a speaker who's going to be talking from Idaho. She is, I think you'll find her very interesting. It's coming on somewhere around 7:20. Your time is later than that for some of you. But she's very worth listening to. We'll talk about hypertension tonight. Any other thoughts that you have, Scott, before we get started?
Just a reminder for the potluck on November 2nd. If you guys, if anyone's going to be in town, here at the Grange, November 2nd at noon for a potluck.
Okay. So I guess we're going to go ahead and get started. Sure, why not? So we want to welcome you tonight for our session on high blood pressure, hypertension. Today we have a speaker from Idaho who's going to come to you on Zoom. I believe you'll be able to see her. I met her for the first time actually yesterday on Zoom in my home. I had spoken to her only by
This is weird. Hey, Charlie. There's no sound again.
Here's another one with a red button. Okay, see if this one works. Can you hear the sound now?
Yes.
Sure, the light's on.
Yeah, so.
I don't know why it keeps shutting off. Hang on.
This is not Edward's issue. This is it's their issue, and you'll have to address the issue with them. And
We might have to unplug that and then just go through the microphone on the computer. Maybe. If I'm not gonna work. Because that's what the problem is. These don't pull.
yeah,
And then you just want to unplug that so that you can then use the microphone.
okay. So we'll try this for a while longer and see whether it actually survives. But keep speaking up when you can't hear us. Okay. Yes. Well, thanks for sharing that with us, and we have Scott to thank for that because he is the one page. He keeps it up, and he's done a amazing job.
I didn't build it. One of the former students, if they come to the classes I taught back in 2018, built the site and she taught me. I went to zero actually one where you got started initially trying to cook in this area and then develop. Second thing I want to share is about the guy's pictures and how it's been. He really gives a formative personal touch. What that did, what that did, as a female, yeah, team part of the team five days ago. Yeah, is it Cecilia Jacobson from Because we have
Karen
Booth.
Booth.
Yeah. Yeah. You go over what you want, where you're at. You know, what was it? Was it the health coaching? Yeah.
Oh, Lisa Chick.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, Lisa is a real star. She's been a tremendous asset, and she started out what 3 years ago saying I'd like to learn more about this, and she has really taken it to a level which is. Yeah, whoever gets her as a doctor is going to be lucky. Are there any new people? Anyone who hasn't been here before? Okay, glad that you're all here. Yes.
Oftentimes my systolic and my diastolic have a quantity spread other times
You know, how much wider spread? You know, blood pressure medicines can vary so much over time. Can be related to your stress level, can be related to so many things. So, you know, I would have to kind of see those numbers before I make a comment as to whether it's significant. We used to believe systolic was the most important issue when I went through my training 50 years ago almost. And then we thought diastolic might be more important. Then we came back to systolic again. We've been back and forth. Ultimately, what's the important thing here? We want healthy arteries. If we have sick arteries, that's what raises our blood pressure. So how do we get healthy arteries? Hopefully these classes will lead you in that direction, okay? As to how to heal your arteries so that they are elastic and will be able to relax, lower your blood pressure, as opposed to remain stiff and raise your blood pressure. And so basically that boils down to your lifestyle choices. Your genes have some effect, but it's your lifestyle choices that have probably 80% of how it's going to affect your health. Okay? All right. You're welcome. So with that said, we're going to play the first video here. And I guess we're going to turn the lights off at some point. I've got to do that share thing. Yeah, share the screen.
Blood pressure is equal to the cardiac output, the volume of blood pumped out of the heart per minute, multiplied by the arteriolar resistance. Blood flow depends on the rate of heartbeats and the volume of blood pumped out with each beat. If rate or volume increases, blood pressure goes up. Likewise, increased resistance raises blood pressure, as when arteries downstream from the heart constrict. Over time, high blood pressure or hypertension damages many organs. First, the heart works harder to pump out more blood or against higher resistance. The heart then requires more oxygen and is more susceptible to angina or a heart attack. Second, arteries and arterioles can be damaged. Arterial sclerosis results when blood moves through the vessels at high pressure, damaging the protective cells lining the vessel. White blood cells are drawn to the damaged area and form plaque. Third, kidneys can be damaged. The capillaries of the kidney are delicate. Continually subjected to high blood pressure, they break down, becoming permeable to proteins and molecules. The kidney's tubules can become clogged, decreasing the ability to make urine. Also, the proteins injure the capillaries' membranes, causing more damage and worsening the situation. Fourth, the retina of the eye can be injured if its delicate capillaries are damaged. Localized hemorrhages can occur, causing scarring, formation of new, more fragile capillaries to replace the old ones. Finally, the blood vessels of the brain can be injured. High blood pressure can cause clots to break off from atherosclerotic plaques, blocking blood flow to the rest of the brain. This is called a thrombotic stroke. Continual exposure to high blood pressure may also cause a blood vessel to burst, leading to a hemorrhagic stroke.
Okay. So we're going to close this down. And I just want to play the next video from Dr. Neil Bernard. He's going to go over a little bit more.
Hi, today we're going to talk about a healthy blood pressure, and that is so important because if your blood pressure is too high, your heart takes a pounding. It's hard on your kidneys. It's hard on all of your body. So how do you have a healthy blood pressure, and what does it mean? Well, hypertension means too much pressure in the arteries, and it's usually reported as two numbers, like 120/80. Well, that first number, the 120, that's called systolic blood pressure. And that means the pressure that is in your arteries during a heartbeat. The second number, that 80, that's called diastolic. And that's the pressure between the beats when your heart is relaxing. So your blood pressure goes up to 120, down to 80, up to 120, down to 80 with each beat of the heart. Make sense? Now, an ideal blood pressure is anything below about 120/80. How do I get there? Well, if your blood pressure is too high, the first step that your doctor probably told you about was to reduce salt, sodium. And doing that's a good idea. If you get down to 2 grams of sodium per day, or 1.5 grams, which some of them are now saying, well, that will reduce your blood pressure a little bit. Now, that's not much salt. That's less than a teaspoon per day. Many people, though, are a little bit disappointed. They lower their salt intake and their blood pressure doesn't fall very far. So go a little bit further. If you pump up the vegetables and fruits, they don't have much sodium, they have a lot of potassium, and potassium helps lower the blood pressure. So lower salt, high vegetables and fruits. But you know, fatty foods play a part here too. And it seems like we've been talking about fatty foods for so many things. But when people get away from fat, their blood pressure falls. How can that be? When I was a kid growing up, my mother used to cook bacon for her 5 kids. She would take the hot bacon strips out of the pan and she'd put them on a paper towel to drain. And then she would take that hot pan filled with grease and pour it into a jar to save the bacon grease. But you know, she didn't put that jar in the refrigerator. She just put it on the shelf because she knew that as that bacon grease cools down, what happens? It turns in.
We'll never know. Well, I guess that's the end of it for this session. I don't know if it'll play again, but we'll give it a try. And we couldn't open it. Okay, well, let's go on to the next video. He does talk about sodium, decreasing sodium, increasing your potassium with fruits and vegetables. Of course, he mentions decreasing the fat. That will lower your blood pressure besides the food choices in your diet. What is it? Exercise. Yeah, so exercise is really a significant one. You can control that. Anybody else have anything? Rest is one. And so dealing with stress in your life, either through meditation, yoga, exercise, listening to music. There are so many things that you can do to lower the stress level in your life. So connection is important. And if you get your circadian rhythms off with inadequate sleep and those sorts of things, that also can affect your blood pressure. So when we're trying to adjust someone's blood pressure, it's not just all food, but oftentimes by starting with food, it makes a huge difference. And I must say, I just listened to a video by Dr. Greger. I did a search on hypertension today on his site, and he's got a video that talks about hypertension and fasting. And for people who can't seem to control their blood pressure with 1, 2, or 3 pills, or 4, these people sometimes can reset the software in their body. You know, like you would do in a computer when you turn it off and turn it back on, it kind of resets itself and it starts working again. Fasting for 11 days, 10 or 11 days it was, led to significant lowering of blood pressure. That's taking people off of all their blood pressure medications, and it lasted for a long time. If you're interested in that, it should be medically supervised. He doesn't think over a day or 2 or 3 that you should be fasting on your own. But there was also another study that did fasting with, but allowing 300 calories a day. So you're not totally fasted. It still was a medically observed fast for 7 days. And that even led to blood pressure lowering. So if you're really struggling with blood pressure problems, there are a number of activities that you can do. I'm going to play one last video. Made it, and then I'm going to have her talk. Last video for now. This seems to still be in. Yeah, this is these are not playing. Could be that this is hooked in to
which we did. We couldn't open. So there is some issue with the way this is maybe connected in the heart. My thumb drive is connected into a USB thing. Do you think too many people, too many things are connected into it? Okay, so let's disconnect this here. Pull this out. Let me try this one more time. Okay, so we need to try plugging it in directly. So we're gonna pull this out. This one. I think.
Like any group with vested interests, the food industry resists regulation. Faced with a growing scientific consensus that salt increases blood pressure, major food manufacturers have adopted desperate measures to try to stop governments from recommending salt reduction. Rather than reformulate their products and save lives, manufacturers have lobbied governments, refused to cooperate, encouraged misinformation campaigns, and tried to discredit the evidence. After all, salt is the main source of flavor in processed foods. Of course, they could improve the flavor by adding real ingredients, but like making a Pop-Tart with actual strawberries would be more expensive, cut into profits. The evidence that they're trying to discredit includes double-blind, randomized trials dating back decades. You take people with high blood pressure, put them on a sodium-restricted diet, and their blood pressure drops. Then if you keep them on a low-salt diet and add a placebo, nothing happens. But if you instead give them salt in the form of a time-release sodium pill secretly, their blood pressure goes back up. And the more sodium you secretly slip them, the higher their blood pressure climbs. Even just a single meal can do it. If you take people with normal blood pressure, give them a bowl of soup containing the amount of salt a regular meal might contain, and your blood pressure goes up over the next 3 hours compared to the same soup with no added salt. Why, though? High blood pressure appears to be our body's way to push out excess salt out of our system. Dozens of such studies have been done, showing that if we reduce our salt intake, we can reduce our blood pressure, and the greater the reduction, the greater the benefit. The so-called DASH diet, which I've covered before, commonly used to capture the blood pressure benefits of a more plant-based diet. But how do we know the benefits had anything to do with eating less salt instead of just eating more fruits and vegetables? Because it was put to the test. Sure, eating healthier lowers blood pressure no matter how much salt we eat, but even if we stick to the same diet, lowering salt helps independently of other dietary improvements. You can do this on a community level. You take two matched villages that both start out about the same. In the control village, on average, blood pressures went up or stayed the same. But in the village where they were able to cut down on salt intake, blood pressures went down. Whereas if we don't cut down, a chronic high salt intake can lead to a gradual increase in blood pressure throughout life, as shown in the famous InterSalt study. 52 centers from 32 countries participated with hundreds of participants each, and 4 of those centers were in populations that ate so little salt they actually complied with the American Heart Association guidelines for salt reduction. Something less than 1% of Americans achieve. In a population where everyone makes the cutoff, not a single case of high blood pressure was found, not one case of high blood pressure. But not only that, the older folks had the same blood pressure as the teenagers. This is why including such populations is so important. If you just look at the 48 centers in the industrialized Western world, there does not appear to be any relationship between rising blood pressure with age and how much sodium people are getting every day, right? It just looks like a random assortment of dots. Now, the salt industry looks at this and says, aha, see, I told you so, no relationship between salt and increasing blood pressures as you get older. But maybe that's because they're all getting too much salt. The American Heart Association recommendation is that everyone get their salt intakes under here. So they're all way over. You can imagine a similar result if this was instead lung cancer rates versus packs of cigarettes smoked every year. Whether you smoked 150 packs a year or 200 packs a year might not make much of a difference. To see a relationship between smoking and cancer, you'd have to compare smokers to those who rarely light up. And indeed, if you add in those low-salt populations that get little or no high blood pressure as they get older, and you end up with a highly statistically significant relationship between increasing sodium and increasing blood pressure. But only if you include people that actually comply with the SALT guidelines. As with so many lifestyle interventions, they only work if you actually do it.
Here's one. Okay, so now we figured out that the videos will work. Now it's time for us to have a little conversation about a real world health issue or issues with a real person. And so we're fortunate to have tonight Connie Millman. Like I told you, I first met her, I think it was back in February. And she's been kind enough to spend some time with you all so you could ask her some questions if you choose. We'll try to mediate that discussion, and I guess that's all I have to say at this point. I'll let her tell you her story, and I really appreciate you coming. So Connie, we're gonna try to expand you so that the people here in the room can see what's going on. I think we just need to pin her to the room.
Okay.
Okay.
Hello, everyone. It's really nice to see you. I'd just like to share with you my health journey that I've been on this last roller coaster of 20 years, 25 years. I first started in 2000. I had interstitial lung disease and was over at Oregon Health Sciences University. They told me in 5 years I'd have a lung transplant. I had to get rid of all my animals. I raised sheep for the kids and just really changed my lifestyle. So I became a residential appraiser. I went to school. I thought, well, that's something that I can do that won't harm my lungs. And I
Hold
was,
on 1 second,
okay.
Connie. Who is it that can't see? So I unplugged the camera. If I plug that in,
Okay, Connie, go ahead and talk to us for a minute. Let's see if we can hear you.
Okay. So I'm a residential appraiser.
Hold on a
And
sec.
okay,
I need to put you on pause for a moment.
okay.
Okay, let's try it one more time.
Okay. Well, I'm a grandma. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Let's have you start over from the beginning.
Oh boy. You mean I have to think of that all over again? My name is Connie Millman, and I'm from Fruitland, Idaho. I'm a residential appraiser who I have my own business. I'm a grandmother of 18 and a great grandmother of 7. I have a big family. I love my family. I live on a small farm. And like I said, when I was 40 in 2000, I had, I got pneumonia and I didn't know what it was. They sent me to Oregon Health Sciences University and I had interstitial lung disease. And that was caused from environmental. I worked at at wood grain where I had toluene poisoning. So anyway, they said, well, you'll probably have to have a lung transplant in 5 years. So I had to get rid of all of my animals, my sheep, my horses, my everything, and just to try and to do my day-to-day work. So anyway, I started feeling better and I decided I would go to school, more school for my appraisal business. And I just passed all my classes to become a certified appraiser and I had a mini stroke. And so that put me in the hospital for a couple of days and the doctor put in a pacemaker after that. Then I had another mini stroke. It didn't help. Pacemaker didn't do anything except for now track all this AFib and how weird my heart was. My numbers were off the chart. My cholesterol was over 300. Everything, I was just so unhealthy. I had hardening of the arteries. they said, well, let's put you on statins. My kidney function was very low, the GFR numbers. They just couldn't figure out what to do with me. So I decided, and I felt so terrible. Every day, all I wanted to do was sleep. It just got worse and worse. I didn't want to get dressed. I got depressed. I was on depression medicine. I have these anxiety attacks. So they had me on lorazepam for that. They had me on hydrocodone for the coughing attacks. They had me on tramadol for the pain. It was just a mess. And I'd have these big old runs of AFib. So the first of the year, the doctors tried to do a vein mapping and said that my heart had so much calcium built up that my calcium score was over 1100, and there really wasn't anything more that they could do for me. Continue on the statins, even though the statins gave me hives. And they said, well, the hives won't kill you, but the other will. And I had 2 cardiologists tell me that I needed to get my affairs in order, and my physician, regular physician. And I was just like, I've got these great grandkids that I want to see grow up, and all my family. I'm not ready to just check out.
Yeah, so Connie,
Mhm.
I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
But, there's probably a little buffering going on with your.
Okay. I lost you. Did we lose him?
You can talk to her right here. Can you hear me?
Hey,
It's gonna be feedback. You might want to go over there.
okay.
No, talk
Oh.
over here.
Hey, Connie, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. So you're back now.
Okay.
We lost you for a bit, just at the time that you said you had a few doctors tell you something.
Okay. I had 2 cardiologists tell me that I needed to get my affairs in order. And my physician said, I feel like I'm echoing, am I? Yeah. So, do I need to do something different? Who did we lose? The doctor?
Go ahead.
Okay. So you are there, right?
No, here.
Okay. Everybody's here. Okay. So my friend and my physician, she went and saw Dr. Ross he spoke at a medical conference in Sun Valley. And he talked about the diet, and she talked to him afterwards, and then she told me, she says, I think that you need to contact him. You don't have many options, so maybe this will help. So I did. I contacted Dr. Ross, and he gave me the app for the Daily Dozen and explained to me how to use it. And that was March 5th. And I have been on that diet ever since then. I'm proud of myself because I've lost 48 pounds. My numbers have gone from over 300 in my cholesterol number to 123. In fact, I think it's almost getting a little too low, which is so wonderful. And my blood pressure has all dropped. I'm having a little problem now keeping my blood pressure up high enough to not be dizzy. So I've gone, my medicine, I was on 360 milligrams of diltiazem. It's down to 180, and I think they're going to cut it again. The metoprolol for blood pressure was at 50 milligrams, and they cut it to 25, and now they've cut it to 12 and a half. I am off all the blood thinner that I was on before. In 2022, they did or 23, they did a Watchman in my heart to plug off that little hole to try and prevent blood clots. So, but it wouldn't heal. So they kept me on the blood thinners. And since this diet, that's all healed. I'm off of blood thinners for the first time in 10 years. And it's wonderful. And just to tell you how miserable I was back then, in 2022, I collapsed in here in the living room, and they took me by ambulance, and I thought, what in the world? I guess I'm having a heart attack. And I had a gangrene gallbladder. I was so sick and felt so terrible, I hadn't even noticed any of the signs. So I know how low people can get, and how you just almost want to give up. But this diet, I'm a big meat eater, and so to go with no meat and no dairy and no eggs, I love eggs. It was really hard. But after I just kept, Dr. Ross showed me on the phone how to hit that little eye and go to the other place, the other little section where you could see all the other foods that you could eat. And I stuck to eating the 3 meals of beans a day, everything that it said on that diet. The only thing I have to admit is I'm not doing any turmeric. But I guess I should. But and so after about 3 weeks and just putting up with cravings, they started going away. But I did notice that I needed to eat everything that was on that list in order to keep my hunger at bay. And so it pretty soon, and the weight just started coming off, just kept falling off and falling off. And I'm like, what's going on? I go to the doctor, and they said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, let me tell you what I'm doing. And then they sent me to a lipid doctor. And because since I couldn't take the statins, and he said, well, I'm going to run all these tests. And he's the one that discovered that my cholesterol was clear down to 123. And he said, well, I don't know. I don't have any explanation for it, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it because it's working. All your numbers are great. All my inflammation is great. My lungs I'm no longer on the daily inhaler of steroids. I haven't had pneumonia since I started this. I did get COVID, and they were real worried about me getting COVID because they said, you probably won't survive that. So, it's a scary thing for the last couple of years. I got COVID, and within 4 days, nothing. I'm fine. I didn't even get a fever. My body just handled that and is taking care of everything. I think it's just becoming so healthy that I'm not scared anymore. I'm not on the lorazepam for thinking that when I start to get a heart palpitation or something, thinking, oh, this is it. Is this it? Is this going to be it? Am I, what's going to happen? And is it going to hurt? And, and try to calm myself down. I don't have to do that anymore. I am working full-time, full-time in my business, and my husband's retired. I must say, when I was sick, he was doing all the cooking and cleaning of the house, and I was feeling more and more depressed, feeling like I was kind of a failure. But since I started the diet, he still is doing the cooking because he's a meat and potatoes guy with gravy and everything else. And I'm like, I don't want nothing to do with this. So I just stay out of the kitchen, and I'll eat my dinner, my salad and everything, and just kind of stay away and not tempt myself. But I go out to eat with him. They'll have their steak. I'll have a salad, and I'm full. And I'm proud of myself when I'm done, because I didn't give in to all that. I see that steak with all that fat and that meat and that, and it almost it smells good, but that's about the only thing. So I do know that this will work. It will. Your body can heal itself. Any questions?
So Connie, could you kind of briefly discuss a little bit more about how you were feeling before you called me, how your day was going, and what your husband did with you in terms of your job opportunities, and also what decisions did you and your husband make when you were told by these doctors that your life was pretty much needed to get your affairs in order? What about your
Yes.
course, that sort of thing?
My daily life, when I would get up in the morning, I would be up for maybe an hour. And when I got up, sometimes it was 10:30, 11 o'clock. I couldn't get my work done because I didn't have the energy to do it. And I'd put sweatpants on and go back to bed. And my husband was doing all the cooking. Our grandchildren live with us. He was doing all the cooking. I just felt horrible when when they told me that to get my affairs in order, we made out our will. I made out a living will. He would not let me go anywhere by myself because he was afraid I would have a spell. And I had many spells. And I don't know if they were actually caused from my heart or they were just panic attacks. I was afraid. I was afraid all the time. My husband went hunting this year for the first time in many years because he wouldn't leave me alone. And normally I'd almost have to have a babysitter. My daughter would come over and stay at the house if he had to go somewhere. I mean, he's 70 years old and has a life too, but he just had to completely change everything to be my babysitter and caretaker. And I mean, I didn't put on makeup. I didn't curl my hair. I didn't care about anything. And we prepared to sell our home. We thought, well, we got to sell the house and because I wanted to have everything ready for him, because he said, I don't even know your computer passwords. I don't even know what our banking account number is. How am I going to do this? And I felt bad for him, but I'd always just managed everything and ran the show, and now it was over. I felt it was all over. And I give all my kudos to Dr. Ross. He saved my bacon. And by not eating bacon, no, but he just gave me the encouragement that said, you can do this. And I thought, I can do this. And I did. And I'm going to continue to do it. I also purchased the book, How Not to Die. And I've read it, and I want to give it to that lipid doctor. I mean, I only went to him once, but he wants me to come back in 6 months. And because he just said, well, there's nothing I can do for you. You're doing it. So I want to take him that book. So anyway.
Are there any questions from anyone in the audience? Here's one.
A question I have, Connie, is when you made the transition from meat and potatoes to the new, going vegetables and so on, how did you transition? How did you get started on that? What are your tips as you make that transition?
What I did is I prepared, when I read that, and it's beans a day, I bought canned beans. I didn't, make all this homemade stuff. I bought canned beans. I bought spinach that I could make a salad with. I take spinach leaves and I put my warm beans on top of it. And then I put canned corn on top of that. That's my salad dressing, and lots of other kind of vegetables that I want. And I would get a platter, a pie pan, and I just ate. I thought, I'm going to eat the right foods. And if I'm hungry, because I was always a big eater, and if I'm hungry, I'm going to just keep eating these good foods, good for me foods, until I could get over it. And I ate a lot the first month. It was like, oh man, when's my next helping of beans? You know, and I ate a lot of salad, but and spinach, you know, I mean, a lot of spinach salads. But you can, and the nuts, if you eat everything that's on that list, was very important to me to eat everything on that list. And it helped curb all those cravings.
List being what? What list?
The list being what?
The Daily Dozen, the app that says Daily Dozen, and it'll tell you exactly what to eat.
What I can say, Connie, is I don't think there's anything better than a whole food plant-based diet. It helps everything. It's amazing.
It is amazing.
It
I
is.
agree. I totally agree.
Yeah.
And the energy, it's like,
Off the
wow.
charts.
Yes, it really is. It's, I'm
know,
looking
it's-
forward to next year. You know, I think we're going to travel a little bit. Yeah.
Any other questions from anyone, either online or in the room here? Yes, here's another question in the room.
Just one other, Connie, as you're sharing and you're talking about the daily dozen list and so on, do you venture to some site to get new recipes, or how does that evolve for you? Like say you want to create a new something
Right.
or recipe.
Yeah. I'm kind of a plain person when it comes to eating, and I was so afraid of eating the wrong thing at first for about the first 3 months that I didn't venture into all the spices and everything that they have. I just ate, you know, kind of boring food, but I ate the beans and the fruit and the nuts and seeds, and I just went down the list and I made a check mark on it until I finally got myself where I had confidence that I wasn't going to, you know, step out of the realm of what I should be eating. I have looked up some recipes and I've made the bean loaf that they have. I've researched and found that there's sugar-free ketchup, and everything I want to eat is also gluten-free. And so, you know, there's sauces that you can put on that I watched video by Dr. Greiger, and they were just, it was great. You know, the videos that they have, and they have recipes. And I also watched some by Edelstein, Dr. Edelstein, and his wife and mother, which his mother must be 90, but she's amazing. She's always on there, and they're always cooking and giving you something new. And they're where I got the bean loaf, and everything is free. That's what I'm amazed, is these doctors are not in this to make money like everybody else. It's free. This information is free.
Yes, another
This
question.
will be my last one, 'cause I don't.
It's okay, you're doing fine.
Okay. I also live in a household where I'm the sole pioneer in terms of this, going this route, and other members of the household choose not to. How did you get your boundaries set up to make it comfortable? Or were you able to?
Right. It is hard. That is a very hard thing to do because I'm the only one in my household that's on it. I can see other members of my household that need it, that are overweight and do not feel good. And one day they've got aches and pains and arthritis, and you can just know it's inflammation from that hot dog that they went over and grabbed and ate cold a minute ago at the fridge. You're going, oh my word, people. And I had to say, I'm not cooking at the same time you are. You cook your meals and I'll cook my meals. I'm going to eat over here in my little section of the world. I love you, but if you're not going to eat like I am, then, and I used to, my husband was cooking. He was doing all the cooking anyway, but I used to cook. I can cook, but he would say, oh, well, you can't eat that, can you? Or we'd go out to eat. Oh, prime rib. Oh, it's so good. Oh, you can't eat that, can you? And I'm like, no, but I can eat that salad and put beets on it, and sunflower seeds. Yeah, and I'm getting just as full, and I got the energy. I'd go play a video machine or something. I mean, I just kind of just did my thing, and I started to go within myself and think, okay, I got to be proud of myself. I have to help myself. I cannot rely on them to help me. If they don't want to eat like this, then you eat what you want. You cook. I'm not cooking for you. I'm not cooking that stuff. And it's hard. It is hard when the rest of the family doesn't do it, but you just have to. And once you get to doing it, and once you get that through that couple months and through that hard time, you will be so proud of yourself. You will just do it. You'll say, yeah, well, I sure feel good. I sure have a lot of energy. I'm sure sorry you don't feel good today, but I do. I feel great. So you got to be a little selfish.
Your assertiveness skills are well polished. Thank you. You're sharing.
Anybody online have anything, they want to add or offer or question? Okay, it looks like, everybody online is good. Everybody in here is good, unless there's any questions from anyone else. Connie, we really appreciate you spending the time, to share this, some of the personal information, and, it really does my heart good to see you in person. And, I just want to emphasize that we started our conversation together on phone. We didn't know each other. You
No.
kind of,
Yeah.
you sent me an email maybe every couple months or so that you were getting a little bit better and things were progressing, and you didn't have to do a procedure because you were feeling better.
Yes.
And each time you would kind of communicate that you had not been cheating. And I tried to tell you to try not to think about this as cheating, as that you just keep reaching toward your health by every decision you make. And that, if you happen to eat something that's not on the Gregor's Daily Dozen, you're not a criminal, you don't get a ticket, but if you just keep making those healthy choices and just keep making it for every time you pick something, you can achieve the results that you've achieved. So it does my heart good to see you.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Ross. You have helped me so much, and you were just right there at the end of the phone every time when, I wouldn't have done this Zoom meeting the first of the year because my face was puffy. I didn't put on makeup. I didn't do my hair, and I was too embarrassed for myself. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing your story. We really appreciate it.
We expect to see you on your 100th birthday.
Yes, I know. Won't that be great? I can't wait.
All right. So
Okay. Thank you.
we can, thank you again for coming. We can turn the lights back on for a moment and see if you have any questions. We got a few people clapping in the audience here.
Thank you.
Wow. So I have to add another little story. That was such a great story, but I have to add, this has been a really good week for lifestyle medicine. At the first of the week on Monday, Lisa Chick, who you mentioned, she did a motivational interviewing session with medical students in Pomona. There were, I don't know, close to 100 or maybe more who showed up for that. I don't know if you need this. And it was wonderful to see. She, explained the benefits of medicine, but motivation interviewing with. in the old days, doctors used to be the authority and tell their patients, this is what you do. You need to get out and exercise. You need to eat this. You need to do this. No one likes to be told what to do. It works very well. When we tell patients there's another pill and another pill and another pill, most of the people are not taking those pills. 50 to 80% of people don't take medicine until they're going to take them. So there's a new way of talking, and it's called motivational interviewing. And it's allowing the patient to choose what topics they'd like to address, like whether they feel they're overweight is a problem, whether their blood pressure is a problem, and to just kind of be like a coach and kind of encourage them along when they're willing to make changes in those sorts of things. So she did that session. And then she had another session, which was the book club. Yesterday evening, 167 students and community members showed up and listened to a little bit about lifestyle medicine again, and then this book called Spark, dealing with exercise and the importance of moving more in your life and how it adds to your health. And so that was wonderful. I was feeling pretty high that here's Lisa Chick. Scott and I have both promoted her, pushed her along. She is just like blossomed like a bud on a rose. It's just beautiful to see what she has done with her life. And so then this morning, I got a call. And I wasn't me who just got the call. I was grateful this morning when I woke up. And in bed next to me was my favorite friend, my wife, Christine, who's here tonight. And the two of us were eating breakfast together, which we do every morning. We did our 3-mile walk together. And then we chopped up a few veggies, a little fruit, some whole grains, some beans that she cooked. And my mouth was watering as I talk about this. And I'm so fortunate to have her as my life mate. But we were sitting and chewing on our breakfast, enjoying it, and the phone rings. And who is it? None other than our son. Our son, who is in 53 now, I don't know, something in that age, 54. God, he's getting older. And he says, I'm just calling to touch bases. And so Big Mouth here, I gotta tell him about what's going on with the classes and this and that, and what's going on in our life. But he's been chomping at the bit waiting to tell us about his life. And his life goes something like this. We have a daughter, and she's about 5.5, going to be 6 years of age. And she's going to a private school. And what are they doing at the school? We're feeding her M&Ms and chocolate and sweets and all this junk food, he says. And we're sending her with her lunch, and she's not eating her lunch. And he's going on and on. I've talked to the principal, talked to her teachers. I mean, this is ridiculous. He's going on, and finally it hit me. David, you sound like your dad. I was so excited to hear him promoting that, how important the food choices are in his daughter's life. And this was a meat-eating, totally standard American diet kind of person who was changed ultimately by Dr. Greger's How Not to Die book, which I sent him. And he actually says he's going to give that to the principal of the school and try to get changes there. So he's working on that, carrying on. It felt really good. So that's the story I wanted to share with you today. Any other thoughts or questions? I have a couple more videos on high blood pressure specifically, but God, I can get wound up and, get off track for a little while just because I get excited about this.
So we understand where, when he was talking, when the video got cut off about if you're eating a lot of saturated fat, a lot of the red light foods, you know, the standard American foods, it causes the blood to be more viscous, more thick. So harder to pump through your body. I don't know if you have the video where cells going through the blood, small blood vessels. Yeah, so you want to keep your blood thin and easy to pump, and that keeps your blood pressure lower. So, yeah.
I had that keto vegan diet for a couple of years and I felt great. But in the end, I ended up having to go through a lot of process. It's 90% saturated fat, and I didn't know that. But I was going to trace that dog, didn't know how that, you know, I anyway, I think, I think I'm gonna have to share and start, because I want to know, you know, chicken, chicken stuff in batter. I now have plaque and I'm on statins, and I'm so we'll have to pay attention to the kind of fats, especially other carbs, like starchy carbs. Because my metabolism just turned that off to sugar. So.
Well, that's great. So it's a great point. So you don't want to be junk food. I mean, there is some studies on what it's called keto Atkins, and what that is a plant-based keto diet. So it's super restricted, really hard to maintain. But they did have a study where they showed all-cause mortality, which means death from any cause, and it actually showed a reduction in all-cause mortality. You eat that keto Atkins diet, but it was, you know, not a lot of highly processed plant foods, but it is a fair amount of oil, mostly olive oil, eating a lot of nuts and nut butters and avocados, and still lots of vegetables, but restricting fruits and berries. So it's really, really restrictive. And so that's all I can say about it from a study, from a, you know, the evidence-based standpoint, is it seemed to reduce all-cause mortality. But we do have studies of people that are on the junk food eating that's actually worse, you know, higher all-cause mortality. So but what she's saying too is really important, that you don't eat all that, you know, coconut oil and all the processed vegan stuff, because it does cause inflammation in the body.
And
And don't be afraid of starches. Don't be afraid of full plant starches. So does it, you know, it's, yeah, you don't want to do that, because everything turns to sugar eventually, but it's the package that matters, not what the percentage of calories that are carbohydrate versus protein versus fat. That's not important. What's important is what is the package of food you're choosing. So if it's a whole unprocessed plant food, fruits, vegetables, beans, intact whole grains, potatoes, sweet potatoes, corn is even okay. Those are all, because they're so high in fiber, so high in nutrients, and they break down slowly in the body. They won't cause you to gain weight, because they're all really low in calorie density, 500 calories a pound or less. And so you,
I have a question.
yeah.
Are the canned things, like canned beans, they don't have too much salt in them, are they okay?
Yeah, just rinse them off. Yeah, the salt. Yeah. So it's more expensive. Like I do canned beans just because. Yeah, but if you could put them in a slow cooker, it's a lot cheaper. Sometimes more tastier that way.
Scott,
Yeah.
turn the light off, and I'm going to play
Okay.
the video you thought about America's #1
Well,
killer.
Yeah, we'll get back to that.
It shows the sludging of the blood here, which I think you'll find interesting.
Representation of what happens when you eat high-fat meals. Watch this. This is the representation of what happens when you eat a high-fat meal, where vegetable fat and animal fat. And into the bloodstream, when they flow out, so they're very strong that they have to repel each other and cell membranes, so you have this rapid effective drop of the body. Then you get the fat, vegetable and animal fat, goes through the gut, into the bloodstream, coats the blood cells, and now they get stick from
So what happens at 10 to 12 hours? You eat another meal. And what does that do? The same thing. Yeah? All right. One more on high blood pressure here while we're at it. Huh? Okay. I didn't know I wasn't sharing it, but of course. So here's how to treat high blood pressure with diet.
High blood pressure ranks as the #1 risk factor for death and disability in the world. Previously, I showed how a plant-based diet may prevent high blood pressure, but what if you already have it? The American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recommend as the first-line treatment lifestyle modification. If that doesn't work, you can start the patient on a thiazide diuretic, water pill, and then you keep piling on the meds until you get their blood pressure down. Commonly, people end up on 3 drugs, though researchers are experimenting with 4 at a time, and some people end up on 5. Why not just jump straight to the drugs? Well, they don't treat the underlying cause, and they can cause side effects. Less than half of patients stick with even the first-line drugs, perhaps due to the adverse effects such as erectile dysfunction, fatigue, and muscle cramps. So, what are these recommended lifestyle changes? They recommend to control one's weight, salt, and alcohol intake, engage in regular exercise, and adopt a DASH eating plan. The DASH diet has been described as a lacto-vegetarian diet, but it's not. It emphasizes fruits and vegetables and low-fat dairy, but just a reduction in meat. Why not vegetarian? We've known for decades that food of animal origin is highly significantly associated with blood pressure. In fact, if you take vegetarians and you give them meat, you can watch their blood pressures go right up. I've talked about how there are benefits to getting blood pressure down as low as 1/70, but who can get that low? Populations eating plant-based diets, like in rural China, about 110/70 their whole lives, with the meat only eaten special occasions, or rural Africa, where the elderly have perfect blood pressure as opposed to hypertension. In the Western world, as the Heart Association has pointed out, the only folks really getting down that low were the strict vegetarians, coming out at about 110/65. So when they created the DASH diet, were they just not aware of this landmark research done by Harvard's Frank Sachs? No, they were aware. The chair of the design committee that came up with the DASH diet was Dr. Sachs. In fact, the DASH diet was explicitly designed with the #1 goal of capturing the blood pressure-lowering benefits of a vegetarian diet, yet contain enough animal products to make it palatable to the general public. In fact, Sachs found that the more dairy the lacto-vegetarians ate, the higher their blood pressures. But they had to make the diet acceptable. Research has since shown that it's the added plant foods, not the changes in oil, sweets, or dairy, that appears to be the critical component, so why not eat plant-based? Recent meta-analysis showed vegetarian diets were good, but strictly plant-based diets may be better. Vegetarian diets in general confer protection against cardiovascular disease, some cancers, and death, but completely plant-based diets seem to offer additional protection for obesity, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, and heart disease mortality. Based on a study of 89,000 people, those eating meat-free diets appeared to cut their risk of high blood pressure 55%, but those eating meat-free, egg-free, and dairy-free had 75% lower risk. If, however, you're already eating a whole food plant-based diet, no processed foods, no table salt, and you're still not hitting 110/70, there are a few foods recently found to offer additional protection. Ground flax seeds, few tablespoons a day induce one of the most potent antihypertensive effects ever achieved by a dietary intervention. 2 to 3 times more powerful than instituting an aerobic endurance exercise program. Watermelon also appears to have extraordinary effects, but you'd have to eat like 2 pounds a day. Sounds like my kind of medicine, but it's hard to get year-round. Red wine may help, but only if the alcohol has been taken out. Raw vegetables or cooked? And the answer is both, though raw may work better. Beans, split peas, chickpeas, and lentils may help a little. Kiwi fruits, though, don't seem to work at all, even though the study was funded by a kiwi fruit company. Maybe they should have taken direction from the California Raisin Marketing Board, who came out with this study showing raisins can reduce blood pressure, but only, apparently, compared to fudge cookies, Cheez-Its, and Chips Ahoy.
So, any questions at this point from anybody, either in the room or online?
Dr. Ross, I have a question. Do
Yeah.
you know how fast our blood travels throughout our body?
I'm not that smart. I really don't know. I guess it could be calculated. There's a circulation time that I learned way back in medical school, and I guess we could do a Google search. I see my wife, she is bringing out the phone to do the circulation time, and maybe she'll come up with an answer before we get done with the session here today. You know, when your heart is pumping blood around, I don't know if it's a minute, less than a minute it takes to travel around. I wouldn't think it would be very long. And then you could probably calculate how many miles of arteries it was traveling, or how many feet it was traveling, and someone smarter than me would figure that out. Good question. Why do you want to know? What is it? It's 30 centimeters a second. A centimeter is like the width of your index finger. So 2.54 centimeters is an inch. So it's a little less than half an inch. And it's how many? 30? Every minute, 1.5 gallons of blood are pumped through the heart. So there's the answer, person. Next question.
So my mother had high blood pressure, and she didn't have any salt at all. And she ended up going to the hospital being kind of crazy because she didn't have enough salt in her body. And so I don't know how much a person should have and how to get it.
So there's a syndrome of inappropriate ADH, which you can actually not hold on to the normal amount of salt that you ingest. So there are some people who have that problem.
Where the cause of low sodium in the blood is drinking too much plain water and not getting enough calories, not eating enough. So it's usually not too low of a sodium intake in the diet, which is usually more. So it could be the SIADH thing Charlie was talking about, some other thing. But mainly, most of the people that we encounter, it's usually drinking too much plain water, not getting enough calories, eating to cause low blood sodium. And then medications can cause it too. Certain medications.
Yeah. I had the opposite problem. I was doing protein shakes in the morning. By the end of the day, I realized that's the only liquid I had. I had lots of stuff to them. So I wasn't feeling real good. So I looked it up, and it really, I don't hear it in the literature, but being too dehydrated can really, problem with blood pressure.
Exactly. Yeah. Important to drink enough water. Oh yeah. Right. So yeah, definitely important to stay hydrated. Yeah, question with you.
Is MCT not good for you? I'm not.
That's coconut oil and suji. Yeah.
Well, I've seen it like in a powdered tub kind of a thing.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't eat add oil or anything like that to your diet. You get all the healthy fats from the plants. Yeah.
Does that mean if it's within the normal range, does that mean you're not eating excess sodium or? is there a
No.
different meaning?
Yeah, so blood sodium isn't very correlated with total sodium intake in your body. Your kidneys keep that really tightly regulated.
Okay.
So it's usually things like we talked about, too much water, not eating enough, medications. There's medications that can make your sodium too low or even too high.
So having
things.
your sodium blood doesn't equate that.
With dietary sodium intake. No,
Thank you.
yeah. Questions about? Yes.
And the hospitals that come back from a conference that said you need to be a little bit more relaxed about the range of the blood pressure. I went on the medicine, took it way down quickly, and my pulse rate went way down and resulted in syncope. How do you say it?
Syncope.
Passed
out. Some medicines are on your other health conditions, or cardiologists might have certain. Try to talk about right now it's kind of works. It's all like the people, I heard this right from cardiologists too, that the only people that really about the lot you want, and it's different whether you're on medication or not. So it really isn't a T-low, it's not on medication. People are not really make sure they're hydrated all the time. And so, for someone that's on blood pressure, you don't want people to go. But once you get to about 120, it starts to go back up. It creates like a J shape. And so if you start driving people's blood pressure down below 120 on medication, you actually start worsening, actually more risk of having heart attack, stroke, and problems, because now you're not perfusing the organs like you should. And so you're artificially lowering that blood pressure. Whereas if so I'll take my patients off their blood pressure medicines all the time, reduce them and get them off when they're making these diet and lifestyle changes, because you can get them into trouble, get too low. And so same with blood sugars, you got to be careful with insulin and all the medications, because you can cause hypoglycemia. So you actually cause harm with the medication. So we actually have whole training in our curriculum for lifestyle medicine. There's actually lectures from pharmacists on de-escalating medications, de-prescribing, we call it. And so there's a whole science behind how to do that as well. So a good problem to have, but you gotta be careful. So yeah, so the blood pressure target is going to be different. Someone with diabetes or someone that's had heart attack or stroke might be a little bit lower than someone that hasn't had any. They just have high blood pressure, but they've never had a heart attack or stroke, or they don't have diabetes, and you might be a little bit more lenient. 140, 150 might be okay. So it's just going to depend on each individual person's history and their conditions and their providers, things like that.
One last video.
Oh, yeah.
One last one. It's about Kempner. I think you'll enjoy it.
Rice diet.
Kempner rice diet. He put people on a rice diet, white rice and fruit, to control their blood pressure. Why did he do that? Because they didn't have blood pressure pills when he was doing this. And watch what happened. Because he wanted less, I don't know, sodium. Yeah.
Franklin Delano Roosevelt brought us through the Great Depression and World War II. Who knows how history would have been different had he not died in his 4th term as president from a massive stroke. In the following days and months, we learned that Roosevelt had severe high blood pressure for years. In spite of this, he was on no medications. Rather, the reason for the simple, there were none. The state of the art at the time was death. Death from so-called malignant hypertension, out-of-control high blood pressure, for which it was thought there was no remedy. But there was Walter Kempner and his rice fruit diet. Physician-scientists trained with the best fled Nazi Germany and set up shop at Duke, with hypertension patients with a radical diet consisting of only white rice and fruit, with strikingly favorable results. A rapid reduction in blood pressure, rapid improvement in kidney failure, eye pressure, heart failure, and other manifestations of this previously fatal illness. He figured that if a low-salt diet helped with low-protein diet helped with kidney function, and a low-fat and cholesterol diet helped the heart, why not take it to its logical conclusion and design a no-salt, no-cholesterol diet of almost pure carbohydrate? So he designed a diet with less sodium than any low-sodium diet, less protein than any low-protein diet, and less cholesterol and fat than low-fat diet. His hope was that it would just stop the progression of the disease. Instead, something miraculous happened. In about 2/3 of cases, the disease reversed. Reversal of heart failure, reversal of eye damage, reversal of kidney failure. Remember, this was effectively a terminal disease. People just had a few months to live, but if they went on the diet, most got better. Before and after. The round pictures at the bottom are photographs taken of the back of people's eyes, starting out swollen, bloody, and leaking, and then nearly normal in a matter of months. Kidney disease cured. A striking fact is that in some patients, after being effectively cured by the diet over many months, they could then relax the diet to a more conventional plant-based diet and go on and live a normal, active life. The rice diet may actually drop blood pressures too low, so you have to modify it, add back other foods to bring the pressures back up to normal. An editorial in the New England Journal of Medicine described Kempner's results as little short of miraculous. Practically speaking, there's probably no more effective diet for obese, decompensated cardiac patients. The problem, though, is that most physicians lack the extraordinary persuasive powers required to keep the patient eating such a restricted diet. When Dr. Caldwell Esselstyn presented his study results demonstrating in some cases reversal of near end-stage heart disease with a whole food plant-based diet, the chair of Cleveland Clinic's cardiology department asked, how can we expect patients to stay on a strict diet like this when we can't even get them to quit smoking? Just like penicillin drugs don't work at all unless you take them, plant-based diets don't work unless you actually eat them. I think the answer is that the physician must have a zealous belief in the diet and must convey that passion to the patients. For Kempner to keep his yelled at and castigated them when he caught them straying. And he didn't just browbeat them, he sometimes actually beat them. A lawsuit in which a former patient sued Dr. Kempner that he had literally whipped her with a whip and other patients to motivate them to stick to the diet. Reminds me of the famous diabetes physician Arnoldo Cantini back in the 1800s, who knew that the remedy for diabetes is not at the drugstore but in the kitchen. To ensure compliance, if necessary, he would lock a patient up. Thankfully, in terms of personality, Dr. Esselstyn is the opposite of Dr. Kempner, polite, soft, able to keep his patients on track without whipping them. And last, Esselstyn walks the talk, following the diet himself, whereas Kempner died of a heart attack, though at the age of 94. His work continues on in Durham, where they continue a relaxed version of the diet, allowing actual vegetables. A year before Roosevelt died, Kempner had already published his miraculous results. It seems highly likely that, had the rice diet been provided to President Roosevelt a year before his death, his disease might have been controlled before his fatal stroke, and that this fatal event could have been averted.
Okay. So I've come to the end of the videos for the night, and we are close to the end of the videos. It's 8:30. We'd love to take more questions, but we have a certain length of time we need to get out of here by. So next week, what's on the agenda, Scott? We're looking it up. We do this week by week.
It's the social support with Dr. Linsmeyer. Mr. Linsmeyer.
So the cardiologist is going to come and talk about social support issues next week. Remember, that's one of the pillars of lifestyle medicine, your social connections in this world. Very important to your health, mental health, and your physical well-being, ultimately.
And the next day after that is the potluck. So November 1st, Friday, a week from today, the social connection, then Saturday the 2nd. You also just bring like a fruit platter you get at the store, or a vegetable platter or something. But even if you're not comfortable making something, come on out. We'd love to see you here. Yep.
Yeah.
Noon, 12 o'clock noon. Saturday, November 2nd. Yeah. And we have to end it right. It's already almost November.
Yeah. Loved having you all here tonight. Wish you all well, and if you have questions, send them along to us, or come next week and we'll talk some more. Thanks for coming. Wow.
Thanks for getting through the technical. We're still working on it. We'll get there. We've never done it in a hybrid class before. It was easy when it was all in person and easy when it was all just online. Trying to do it both at the same time is more challenging. We'll get there. Oh, we don't? Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, she had to leave. Yeah, she helped set up. Oh, great. Oh, that's great. We'll take it. Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah, the free.
So, did you get the 2-1?
Yeah, I mean, we still had some issues.
No issues with your Zooms.
Yeah, like it was shutting down. The Zoom shut down, and the video would. We forgot when. Yeah, like going to the hard drive, they plugged in. Instead of going to the. Yeah, and I haven't plugged in correctly. Okay.
Oh. We live and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'll change the buttons to make it more obvious though. And it seemed like people, we didn't need them. As long as no. I thought they would charge. I'm gonna charge to get my home. Shut up. Yeah. I know, and it was weird.
The technology. If it was just plant-based, it probably would.
Right. They already get. What's that? Oh, I didn't. I'm sure it's on the app. Yeah. And presentation.
And it's share screen and it's got the stuff present.